And gentlemen, it is that time of year. Once again, I'm going to be going through some college football bowl predictions. These are all the bowl games. This is the Action Network. The reason I use the Action Network is because it does have the hypothetical spreads. But these are just the predictions, and we're going to throw all the bowl games, just not just the playoff games, but all of them. This is kind of strange here. They have UNLV beating Boise State on the road. I'm not sure about that. But this would be the prediction. Oregon at number 1, Texas at number 2. That would be Oregon and Texas both winning their conference championships. SMU beating Clemson. Arizona State getting in. The reason Arizona State would be at 4 and not 12 is because if UNLV beats Boise State, there's no way UNLV is going to be at number 4. They're going to be the de facto 12 out of the Mountain West. And then Arizona State would be the 4. But if Boise State beats UNLV, Boise State would be the 4, Arizona State would be the 12. Notre Dame at number 5, Penn State at 6. So they've got Notre Dame ahead of Penn State losing to Oregon. They bump Notre Dame up. I don't know if you can reward Notre Dame like that. Does Notre Dame have the resume to really be able to get, I mean, you're not getting, that's basically a first round bye almost, facing UNLV at home. And that's a crazy seed line too, because that would be terrible for Penn State. I mean, listen, here's the thing. Penn State really doesn't have a great win themselves, but Notre Dame has a horrifically bad loss. I mean, you lose to a MAC school at home. That's way worse than Penn State losing to Ohio State and Oregon. And that would screw Penn State because that would knock them down a spot and they'd have to face Alabama. Georgia at number 7, so they'd be a 3-loss team, but one of the losses would be the SEC championship, but they'd have the number 1 strength of schedule. Ohio State at 8, Tennessee at 9. That seems like it's pretty much locked in, almost. Ohio State facing Tennessee at the Horseshoe. Indiana facing Georgia seems pretty likely at this point. Alabama being the 11 seems pretty likely, depending on what happens with SMU. If SMU loses, then it comes down to Alabama versus SMU. And then UNLV would be in over Boise State according to these projections. In the first round, they've got Ohio State sitting very slight 3-point favorites. So they view basically Ohio State and Tennessee as the same. Ohio State hosting the game, so they're going to get 3 points. Notre Dame 15.5-point favorites against UNLV. You've got, by the way, this Ohio State-Tennessee game they're saying would be the Friday night game. Notre Dame UNLV, I'm guessing they would put on at noon. Yeah, so they're going to do the 12v5 game. I'm guessing on it. That game's going to be at noon. Ohio State, I can pretty much guarantee, is going to be at one of the 8 o'clock times, whether it's Friday or Saturday night. They've got Alabama, Penn State, possibly at 4. I think this game would be at 7. This would be the primetime game, Alabama, Penn State, and then Ohio State, Tennessee. Those would be the 2 primetime games. This Georgia, Indiana game would probably be the 4:30 game or the 4 o'clock game, whatever the time slot is. And then they have the quarterfinals. They have Arizona State taking on Notre Dame. So Arizona State with the bye, 11.5-point underdogs. That would be the Fiesta Bowl. SMU, Penn State sitting -4.5. The Rose Bowl would be Oregon, Ohio State. Oregon -1.5. And then Texas and Georgia face for a 3rd time, which is looking like it might happen based off of where they've been seated in the bracket, with Texas possibly being the 2 and Georgia being the 7. Maybe they'll move Georgia to the 8, although there's no way they would move Georgia to the 8 because then they'd face Tennessee. Maybe they'd put Georgia at the 6. I don't know how they would avoid that in the semifinal. The Orange Bowl, Georgia, 2.5-point favorites against Penn State. Oregon, 3-point favorites against Notre Dame. And then they've got Oregon taking on Georgia. Georgia making the national title with Oregon sitting -2. The rest of the bowl games, you do have Liberty taking on Buffalo. Liberty, they had a really disappointing year. They had a very bad schedule. They couldn't take advantage of it. Their quarterback's in the portal. Minnesota, Virginia Tech. Minnesota, they had a very, very nice year. They almost beat Penn State. Or I wouldn't say very nice year. To me, Minnesota's like an upper echelon average Big Ten team. Louisiana taking on UTSA. UTSA had kind of an uncharacteristically down year. Ole Miss taking on Duke. So Ole Miss, big letdown there. I wonder how many players would sit out for Ole Miss in the Gator Bowl, the Tech Slayer Gator Bowl. Duke sitting at 9-3, but they have 0 good wins. And people are angry that Duke's not ranked because they are 9-3 and they're in a Power 4 conference, but they've got no good wins, literally nothing. But you could argue, I mean, if Missouri is ranked, why isn't Duke? You've got LSU sitting 4.5-point favorites taking on Baylor. Baylor had a very nice close to the season. Baylor might be like the most underrated team in college football. because they had such a, average start. I don't know what their record was. Maybe they were 3-4 or something, but They had a great close, and really nobody talked about them. South Carolina, 8.5. I mean, look at all these SEC teams. They're heavy favorites. South Carolina, 8.5-point favorites against the Illini, the Citrus Bowl. Yeah, South Carolina's not going to make the playoff. We know that. They've had a great close to the season, though. There's no doubt about that. The Sun Bowl, you've got Washington sitting 2-point favorites over Syracuse. I don't think there's. I mean, you would think McCord would play, but apparently he thinks, he's got some draft stock, so I guess we'll see. But there was talk of him not even playing in the final game of the regular season. Florida, Michigan. Remember when this was a bowl game back in like 2015 and Michigan destroyed Florida? I feel like they faced each other a few times in bowls. Or maybe one of them was like a week 1 kickoff. Florida sitting 3-point favorites. Yeah, with the young quarterback, Lagway, that would be a fun little match. Although Michigan, I don't know. Michigan has no offense. They did beat Ohio State. They did. I wonder if, when you've got some of those defenders like Graham and Grant, if they would opt out for Michigan. Missouri taking on Iowa. That would be a good game. Yeah, Iowa's a weird team. I mean, they're 8-4. They're like a fringe top 25 team. If you look at the analytics, they are a top 25 team. I think Iowa probably wins that game. Army taking on Texas State. Army only 3.5-point favorites. Well, we'll see what happens with the Army facing Tulane. We'll see what happens. But Army they're like 10-1 right now. BYU taking on Colorado. Deion Sanders said his team is going to play in this game, apparently. Everyone's going to play. So Travis Hunter's not going to opt out. Shedeur Sanders possibly going to play as well. BYU, a forgotten team at 10-2. They've got a solid resume. It's surprising. Well, I mean, listen, the problem for BYU is the conference that they're in. You have 2 losses. Although, I don't know, you look at BYU compared to Miami, you can make an argument if Miami's in the running for just a bubble team at large spot, BYU should probably be as well. Although, I don't know, I'd have to really look at their resume compared to Miami because I really haven't. But I know a lot of people have said BYU is, they're kind of getting shafted in terms of not even being a thought for the playoff at 10-2. East Carolina taking on NC State. NC State had a real down year. I think NC State they were ranked like top 20 or around there in the preseason poll. Miami of Ohio, Colorado State. Miami of Ohio, I think they're the second best team in the MAC. Colorado State made a bowl game. Wow. Yeah, Colorado State had some hype coming into the season, and then they got crushed by Colorado in like week 2, and then nobody cared about them. Miami, Iowa State. Disappointing for Miami. Also would be disappointing for Iowa State because they've got a chance at the playoff right now. North Texas taking on Ohio. Ohio, they're the other kind of decent MAC school. The Pinstripe Bowl, Nebraska, Louisville 3-point favorites. Nebraska, I'll tell you, Nebraska's losing some players to the portal. Louisville kind of had a disappointing end to the season, losing to Stanford. Otherwise, they'd be inside the top 20. Georgia Tech, 2.5-point favorites over Tulane. Yeah, that would be a good game for the Fenway Bowl. The Fenway Bowl would get some solid teams. Georgia Tech nearly beats Georgia. They had a good close to the season. Tulane analytically is amazing. Although if Tulane beats Army, I think Tulane possibly will get into a better bowl. Although who knows. Clemson taking on Washington State. Yeah, Clemson would. That's the Holiday Bowl. Washington State had a really bad close to the season. People were talking about Washington State making the playoff because they were like 8-1 at one point. And it looked like they were going to finish 11-1 because of just their schedule being de facto group of 5. But they lost to like San Diego State and some other teams. But Clemson would destroy them. I mean, Clemson still has a chance at the playoff. Although Clemson, who knows if Cade Klubnik would play. Texas A&M taking on USC in the Las Vegas Bowl. Who knows? I mean, USC, Moss is in the portal, but they haven't even been starting him. Lincoln Riley, I would imagine, would be back. He's got a big contract. A&M sitting -4. A&M had a decent season. Really bad close to the season against Texas, though, at home. Laid an egg. You've got Oklahoma, TCU. A good old-fashioned... Wait, this is an in-conference matchup. See, this is the weird thing with these bowls. Now we're going to think they're in-conference matchups because Oklahoma goes to the SEC and you got a previous Big 12 matchup. Now the bowl games are becoming more boring somehow because this is like a conference game. This is the Liberty Bowl. Yeah, who knows? Jackson Arnold's in the portal already. Oklahoma did beat Alabama, but I don't know if maybe it was just a rumor that he was in the portal. Arkansas taking on Pittsburgh. Arkansas, yeah, these SEC teams are going to probably win all these games. I mean, they're heavy favorites. Pittsburgh, they had a really bad close to the year. Arkansas is a team that can score a lot of points. Navy taking on Texas Tech. Tech sitting -11. They can score a ton as well. We'll see how Navy does in the Navy-Army game. UConn -8 against Arkansas State. How about UConn getting in a bowl and possibly being favorites? Ventures 68 Ventures Bowl. Kansas State versus Rutgers. Kansas State 8. Yeah, Kansas State's better than Rutgers. That's a clear favorite for Kansas State. North Carolina Bowling Green. What bowl is this? This is the Detroit Bowl. Game Above Sports Bowl. They had to get a sponsorship. Why is North Carolina in the Detroit Bowl? I thought that would be a Big Ten team. But we'll see. North Carolina, they fired Mac Brown. South Florida versus San Jose State, the Hawaii Bowl. It's a bad bowl game. Fresno State versus Northern Illinois. Another bad bowl game. Oh, this game's on Christmas Eve. Myrtle Beach Bowl, Coastal Carolina, Toledo, another bad bowl game. Vanderbilt, Boston College, kind of a fun game there. Vanderbilt had a nice season. Boston College, they're a middling ACC team. Jacksonville State, Marshall's had a good year. They have. Their analytics are not good, but they've got a good record. They're like 9-3. Georgia Southern, Sam Houston, another crap game. California, Boise State. Dude, what? Boise State is only 4.5-point favorites, and they'd be in this the LA Bowl against California. Boy, that shows you what they think of Boise State. I think Boise State's going to make that. Dude, this is how dumb the seeding is. This is a team that possibly could get a bye in the first round. They're 4.5-point favorites against California. Western Kentucky taking on James Madison. It's an annoying game. Abbreviation game. West Virginia taking on Memphis. Memphis had a decent season. I think Memphis would cover that 6-point spread unless their quarterback opted out. South Alabama, boy, a lot of these games are just terrible. Well, no wonder the bowl season sucks now. These games are all horrible. It is what it is, guys. I'm just happy because the playoff expanded and you get these playoff games now. But those are just some bowl game predictions. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.